Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. One thing that is frequently coming around in discussions of future needs for Star Citizen is org tools. Something that has been generically described as Orgs 2.0 has been bandied about for years. And yet when anybody talks about it, what inevitably happens is they list what they would like to have helping to manage their org, not staying aware that the org that they want to run isn't the org that everybody else wants to run, or that, and this may be a bitter pill to swallow, the kind of organization that you want to create isn't the one that CIG thinks is best for the game. And keeping with the theme of telling you things you don't want to hear, there is this. Org tools are not needed in a single-player game, so they aren't going to fall into the category of trickle-down features from Squadron 42. They also are not going to be trickle-down technology from server meshing or career gameplay. This is also an area that is very prone to feature creep. Once you open up the box of features that orgs might want to have, it can grow to a very long list. So I wouldn't want to hold out any hope of org tools being anything that CIG will start to work on soon or finish soon. But I thought that I would do something that most other video producers haven't done and break down the whole range of tools, the whole range of organizations that might need them, and what sort of org is CIG most likely going to want to have you creating. Because a truism of life is what you build depends on what tools you have. So you need to match the tools to what you want to have built. So first, let me talk about the 4 scopes of org tools. The first scope is external tools. These might include tools that allow you to communicate with the whole org, even if they are not in the game, for scheduling, planning, feedback, inventory management, goal setting, creating subgroups, and captains. This might even include tools for text communication with your in-game org mates, even if you are not in the game yourself. The second scope are pre-game tools, which you might also call lobby tools. Tools to see who is in-game and organize parties, or perhaps party hierarchies before launching. Lobby communication tools are also in this category. These tools need to work with the matchmaking system and perhaps can even include sending one party to one shard and another party to a different shard, which might be needed if you are trying to do things like dominate the universe-wide economy. The third scope are in-game tools. These fall into categories of command and control and communication tools. A lot of attention is given to the chat and communication tools, but frankly, there are a lot of external tools for that. More likely is to genuinely need is an in-game tool that would be ways of keeping track of who is where and what they're heading to and what they are doing. The fourth category is a form of external tool that I decided to break out from the first category. Even though it may be popular with certain orgs, CIG might want to consider not having it at all. And that is org treasury and hangar tools. Does the org have a credit account of its own and a fleet of its own, separate from the individual players that are members? And to say that this opens up a can of worms is an understatement. Unless by a can of worms you are talking about a fully loaded to the roof C2. Who sets the rates? How are they collected? What happens to non-payers? Who gets to buy stuff and ships with it? Who decides who gets elevated to the ranks of being allowed access to the org treasury? And who decides that someone needs to be removed from it? Every game that has allowed there to be an org treasury has had orgs sell themselves on the huge treasure and fleets that they will assemble with it. And every game that has had this has also seen high-profile cases of top leaders having their passwords stolen or sold, do we ever actually know which, and the org wakes up one morning to find everything gone. And even if that never happens, there is the possibility that players might feel handcuffed to the org based on the quantity of investment that they have irretrievably had to make to it. And knowing that their membership is thus handcuffed, the leadership feels enabled to behaving more like tyrants. So despite the calls for org tools to allow it, CIG might be tempted to leave that C2 full of worms closed by only having individual fleets and stockpiles that are temporarily and reversibly made available to the org. Even then, there would need to be limits and controls. So let's talk about the 3 types of organizations. The first are what I call informal orgs. These are essentially players who use their friends list as a way to ad hoc put together crews and allies or helpers on an as-needed basis. They aren't really looking for a leader to organize and schedule events, mostly because they feel that their time is not stable enough to commit to events. They have others, be they clients, bosses, spouses, and especially children, to whom they are essentially on call all the time, and so committing to some org event on a particular span of time, on a particular day, to do a particular battle, is not in their realm of possibility, even if they do spend a lot of time in the game, added up in bits here and there. And many of these types of players join the large org, not because they see it as an avenue to large org events, but it gives them a large, trustable contact list of cooperative players who won't stab them in the back. But if that org has a leader who is focused on getting everybody together for big events and formal command structures, you are actually working against the players who just want a large contact list of trustable players. It is almost like there should really be distinctive orgs with different tools or a way of making a large org leader to be able to distinguish between team members who want structured participation and those needing unstructured participation. But when you hear from org leaders, they always talk about needing tools for structured participation, command hierarchies, rather than tools for helping their members have unstructured participation. The next type of organization I would like to talk about is what I call independent provider groups, or IPGs. The classic example of an IPG is the Fuel Rats from Elite Dangerous. And I am hardly alone expecting that when the verse gets larger with Pyro and new careers, we are not just going to see something comparable to the Fuel Rats in Star Citizen, but also towing rats, repair rats, and salvage rats. Or rather, we will see them if this type of organization is feasible at all. And this type of organization has need for tools that no other type of organization has. It essentially needs tools for customer management, including perhaps even tools that would cover whether this particular person in need is a newly created game account on an individual that has a long history of ambushing them or recently cleared extensive crime stats. The thing is, unless you have this kind of support, then these services will only be safely and reliably provided by joining a large org. And there is a separate issue about how large of an org do we want to be the norm in the game. The third type of organization is the formal org. Formal in structure, formal in organization, formal in scheduling, formal in control. It is what many people think of when you mention the word organization. And certainly a big formal organization can accomplish things that an informal or unstructured organization could never hope to. And one of them is that they can dominate. In other games, they dominate planets, dominate trade routes, dominate economies, and yes, sometimes even dominate their membership. Because large centralized organizations don't have a track record of listening to their lowest members, do they? So let's imagine a large, structured, hegemonic organization. Let's call them the Dominance Interstellar Control Council, or DICC. And I can easily see a great member of new players saying, "Damn, everywhere I go, I'm surrounded by dicks, with their dick tactics, their dick demands, and their dick ultimatums. It seems like I'm going to have no way to play this game without having to become a dick too. I hate having to be a dick, but I don't really have any other choice. I may just quit, and I'm sure going to tell everybody else to skip Star Citizen because it's nothing but a bunch of dicks." Now, it's pretty safe that the preceding statement, particularly that last sentence, is the last thing that CIG wants to have said about the game. So how do you stop that? Well, contrary to normal design goals, you create tools that don't scale, or rather that don't scale well beyond a target number of simultaneous in-game players. Then you make tools to make it easier for alliances of those smaller orgs, particularly service provider orgs, to work so that if one single org tries to become the dicks of the game, they can jointly oppose them successfully. Now, I imagine that some of you are thinking I'm being a bit presumptive in saying that CIG does not want to have huge orgs like the dicks to become dominant in the game. How am I to say that that's not their intention? Well, look at lore. Look at the structure of the verse. Look at all the structures of the verse that are clearly intended to be way bigger than even the biggest player organizations. The UEE, the Navy, the advocacy, corporations that own whole planets, not to mention the 9-to-1 economic rule. This is not our verse. We're just supposed to play around here. And now an update on our Grow the Channel ship giveaway. As of recording, we are at 89% of the subscriber goal and 86% of the membership goal, or the IAE Expo, whichever happens first, to give away to some lucky player their choice of the Anvil Liberator, the ship shipping ship for shipping your ships, or the MISC Odyssey, the long-length look-ahead launcher lorry. One entry per video. Members, you're entered automatically. And if the winner is a member as of the publication date of the winning video and at the drawing time, remember that if you let your membership expire, they will win both the Liberator and the Odyssey. For non-members, just subscribe and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the acronym of the organization that CIG might not want to see in the game. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.